The arrival. The day the Zarkan arrived was like any other on Earth. People went about their daily lives, oblivious to the impending doom that lurked just beyond the atmosphere. It was a crisp autumn morning when the first reports of unusual atmospheric disturbances began trickling in from observatories around the globe. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead astronomer at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, was the first to notice the anomalies. She watched with growing concern as her instruments picked up massive energy signatures approaching Earth at an alarming speed. "This can't be right," she muttered, double-checking her readings. But the data didn't lie. Something big was coming, and fast. Within hours, the skies above major cities worldwide were filled with ominous, dark shapes that blotted out the sun. Panic spread like wildfire as social media exploded with images and videos of the alien vessels. Governments scrambled to respond, but it was already too late. The Zarkan ships hung motionless in the sky, their sleek obsidian hulls reflecting the chaos unfolding beneath them. Then, without warning, they struck. Beams of searing energy lanced down from the ships, vaporizing entire city blocks in an instant. The world's militaries retaliated, launching everything they had at the invaders, but their weapons seemed to have no effect on the alien vessels' impenetrable shields. As the initial attack subsided, the true horror of the invasion began to unfold. Smaller craft descended from the motherships, disgorging waves of Zarkan troops onto the streets of Earth's cities. The aliens were tall, insectoid creatures with exoskeletons that shimmered with an iridescent blue hue. They'd moved with inhuman speed and precision, their multiple limbs wielding advanced energy weapons that cut through human defenses like paper. In New York City, Captain Sarah Chen of the NYPD found herself on the front lines of this unexpected war. She had been directing traffic when the first explosion rocked Manhattan. Now she was organizing a desperate defense against the alien onslaught, rallying fellow officers and civilians alike. "Hold the line," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the sound of gunfire and alien weaponry. "We need to buy time for the evacuation." Sarah's makeshift barricade of overturned cars and debris was all that stood between the advancing Zarkan and thousands of terrified civilians fleeing towards the Hudson River. As Sarah fired her service weapon at the approaching aliens, she couldn't help but feel a sense of futility. Their armor seemed impervious to bullets, and for every alien that fell, 2 more took its place. But she refused to give up. If this was humanity's last stand, she was determined to make it count. Across the Atlantic, in London, Royal Air Force pilot James Hawkins found himself in the cockpit of his Typhoon fighter jet, screaming through the skies above the burning city. His squadron had been scrambled to intercept the alien craft, but it was clear they were outmatched. "Bandit on your 6, Hawk," his wingman's voice crackled over the radio. James rolled his jet hard to the right, narrowly avoiding a blast of energy that scorched past his canopy. He gritted his teeth and pulled a high G-turn, managing to get behind one of the smaller alien craft. "Fox 2. James called out as he released a heat-seeking missile. The projectile streaked towards the alien ship, impacting its rear section in a brilliant explosion. For a moment, James felt a surge of hope. They could hurt these bastards after all. But his elation was short-lived as the damaged alien craft simply shimmered and repaired itself before his eyes. "Bloody hell," James muttered, realizing the true extent of the technological gap between humanity and their invaders. As the first day of the invasion wore on, it became clear that this was a global catastrophe unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The Zarkan's attack was relentless and methodical, targeting military installations, communication networks, and centers of government with terrifying precision. In Washington, D.C., President Amanda Reeves sat in the underground bunker of the White House, surrounded by her top advisors and military brass. The room was thick with tension as reports of devastation poured in from around the world. "Madam President, we've lost contact with our forces in Europe and Asia," General Marcus Stanton reported grimly. "Our satellite network is down, and we're running blind. I recommend we initiate the Doomsday Protocol." President Reeves closed her eyes for a moment, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. When she opened them again, there was steel in her gaze. "No, General. We will not resort to nuclear options. That's exactly what they want. For us to destroy ourselves, so they can claim what's left." She stood up, addressing the room. "Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before, and we've always found a way to survive. This time will be no different. We need to organize a global resistance, pool our resources, and find a way to fight back." As the president spoke, a young aide burst into the room, out of breath and wide-eyed. "Madam President, we've just received a transmission. It's from the aliens." The room fell silent as a holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the table. The image of a Zarkan appeared, its multifaceted eyes gleaming with cold intelligence. "People of Earth," the alien's voice resonated, somehow both melodious and deeply unsettling. "We are the Zarkan, and we have come to claim your world. Your planet's resources are now ours. Your civilization, such as it is at an end. Those who submit will be allowed to live as our servants. Those who resist will be eradicated." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. President Reeves looked around at the faces of her advisors, seeing a mix of fear, anger, and determination. "Well," she said, her voice firm and resolute, "I think we've just been given our marching orders. Humanity will not submit, and we will not flee. We fight." As night fell on that first terrible day, the world teetered on the brink of annihilation. The Zarkan's attack had been swift and devastating, but they had underestimated one crucial factor: the indomitable spirit of humanity. In cities and towns across the globe, pockets of resistance were already forming. People from all walks of life were coming together, determined to defend their home against impossible odds. In the ruins of Tokyo, a group of survivors led by former Self-Defense Force officer Kenji Tanaka began stockpiling weapons and supplies. In the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, street gangs set aside their rivalries to form a united front against the alien invaders. And in the vast Australian outback, indigenous trackers and hardened ranchers prepared for a guerrilla war unlike any in history. The Zarkan expected the humans to run, to cower, to submit. They couldn't have been more wrong. As the first day of the invasion came to a close, humanity steeled itself for the fight of its life. The war for Earth had only just begun, and against all odds, hope still burned in the hearts of those who called this planet home. The resistance. In the weeks following the initial Zarkan invasion, Earth had become a battlefield unlike any in human history. The aliens' superior technology and overwhelming firepower had decimated conventional military forces, forcing humanity to adapt or perish. But if the Zarkan thought this would break the human spirit, they were sorely mistaken. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the astronomer who first detected the alien approach, now found herself at the heart of a global resistance movement. Her expertise in analyzing Zarkan technology had made her an invaluable asset. She worked tirelessly in a makeshift lab hidden deep within the Andean mountains, surrounded by a team of brilliant scientists from around the world. "We're making progress," Elena announced to her team, holding up a small device cobbled together from alien and human tech. "This frequency disruptor should be able to interfere with their short-range communications. It's not much, but it's a start." The resistance had quickly learned that conventional weapons were largely ineffective against the Zarkan's advanced armor and shields. Instead, they focused on guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and adapting alien technology for their own use. In what remained of New York City, Captain Sarah Chen had become a symbol of hope for the survivors. Her knowledge of urban warfare and ability to inspire others had transformed her into a formidable resistance leader. She stood atop a crumbling skyscraper, surveying the alien-occupied streets below. "All right, people, listen up," Sarah addressed her team of fighters. "We've got a Zarkan supply convoy moving through Sector 7. Our job is to hit it fast and hard. grab what we can, and disappear before their reinforcements arrive. As her team moved out, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the diversity of her squad. Former Wall Street brokers fought alongside construction workers and teachers. The invasion had erased old divisions, uniting humanity in ways she never thought possible. Across the Atlantic, RAF pilot James Hawkins had traded his fighter jet for a retrofitted crop duster. The plane's primitive technology made it nearly invisible to Zarkin sensors, allowing him to run vital reconnaissance missions and occasionally drop supplies to isolated resistance cells. As he flew low over the Scottish Highlands, James spotted a column of alien vehicles moving towards a hidden human encampment. He keyed his radio, warning the settlers to evacuate, then banked hard towards the convoy. With a flick of a switch, he released a payload of improvised explosives, a mixture of fertilizer and salvaged alien power cells. The resulting explosion was far more powerful than he anticipated, vaporizing the entire Zarkin column. James whooped with excitement as he pulled away, realizing they had stumbled upon a new, effective weapon against the invaders. In Washington, D.C., or what was left of it, President Amanda Reeves had become a wartime leader in the truest sense. The government had gone mobile, constantly moving to avoid Zarkin detection. Today, she sat in the back of a modified RV, conferencing with resistance leaders from around the globe. The situation in Asia is critical, reported Lai Wei, a former Chinese military officer. The Zarkin have established massive processing plants along the coast. They're stripping the land of resources at an alarming rate. Similar reports came in from other continents. The aliens were systematically exploiting Earth's natural resources, showing no regard for the environment or the indigenous life forms. It was clear that their goal wasn't just conquest, it was complete subjugation and extraction. "We need a game changer," President Reeves said, her voice tired but determined. "Dr. Rodriguez, how close are we to reverse engineering their shield technology?" Elena's holographic image flickered as she responded. "We're making progress, Madam President, but it's slow going. Their tech is so advanced, it's like trying to understand quantum physics with a kindergarten education." As the meeting concluded, a young resistance fighter burst into the RV. "Madam President, we've intercepted a Zarkin transmission. They're talking about Earth's magnetic field." The news sent a chill through the room. If the aliens were tampering with the planet's magnetic field, it could spell disaster for all life on Earth. It was clear that time was running out. But even as the situation grew dire, pockets of hope emerged around the world. In the dense jungles of the Amazon, indigenous tribes had formed an unlikely alliance with stranded Zarkin deserters. These aliens, disillusioned with their empire's brutal tactics, were sharing knowledge that proved invaluable to the resistance. One of these deserters, a Zarkin scientist named Zixtel, worked alongside human researchers in Elena's mountain laboratory. Its insights into Zarkin biology and technology were helping to level the playing field. "Your species continues to surprise me," Zixtal chittered to Elena one day. "In all our conquests, we've never encountered a race so adaptable, so resilient." Elena managed a tired smile. "That's humanity for you. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten." As the resistance grew stronger and more organized, the Zarkin response became increasingly brutal. They began targeting civilian populations, hoping to break the humans' will to fight. But each atrocity only served to fuel the fires of rebellion. In the ruins of Moscow, a group of survivors led by former Spetsnaz operative Nikolai Volkov had developed a tactic for bringing down the massive Zarkin walkers that patrolled the city. Using grappling hooks and improvised explosives, they would scale the machines and plant charges at key structural points. Nikolai stood before his team, his face scared but his eyes burning with determination. "Remember, comrades, we fight not just for Russia, but for all of humanity. Tonight, we show these aliens that Earth will never be theirs." As night fell, Nikolai's team moved silently through the rubble-strewn streets. The ground shook as a Zarkin walker approached, its searchlights sweeping the area. With practiced precision, the humans launched their grappling hooks and began to climb. Nikolai reached the top first, planting a charge near what they had identified as a crucial joint. Suddenly, an alien sentry spotted him. Without hesitation, Nikolai lunged at the creature, grappling with it at the edge of the walker's carapace. They teetered on the brink, and then both fell. As Nikolai plummeted towards the ground, he saw his team successfully planting the remaining charges. He smiled, knowing his sacrifice would not be in vain. Moments later, the walker erupted in a series of explosions, crashing to the ground in a heap of twisted metal. News of the successful operation spread quickly through resistance channels, inspiring similar attacks around the globe. Slowly but surely, humanity was learning to fight back effectively against their technologically superior foes. In orbit above Earth, the Zarkan fleet hung like a sword of Damocles. Aboard the flagship, Fleet Commander Vexkor received reports of the growing human resistance with increasing frustration. "Impossible," he snarled at his subordinates. "How can these primitives continue to defy us? Their cities are in ruins, their militaries crushed. They should be begging for mercy." His second-in-command, Zira, spoke up cautiously. "Perhaps we underestimated them, Commander. Their adaptability and resourcefulness are unprecedented in our experience." Vexkor's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "Then we will simply have to escalate our efforts. Prepare the magnetosphere disruptors. If these humans will not submit, we will make their planet uninhabitable for them." As the Zarkan prepared to unleash their most devastating weapon yet, the human resistance braced for their greatest challenge. The war had entered a new phase, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. In hidden bunkers and secret bases around the world, humanity's best and brightest worked feverishly to find a way to turn the tide. They knew that their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. If they couldn't find a way to defeat the Zarkan soon, there might not be an Earth left to save. But even in the face of such overwhelming odds, the human spirit remained unbroken. From the ashes of their old world, a new, united humanity had emerged, one that would fight to the last breath to defend their home. The Zarkan had come expecting an easy conquest, but they had instead awakened a sleeping giant. And now, that giant was ready to fight back with everything it had. The turning point. As the war against the Zarkan entered its 6th month, humanity found itself pushed to the brink. The aliens' devastating attack on Earth's magnetic field had caused widespread environmental chaos, making large swaths of the planet's surface nearly uninhabitable. Resistance forces were stretched thin, struggling to protect what remained of human civilization, while simultaneously fighting back against the invaders. In her underground laboratory in the Andes, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked tirelessly, fueled by a mixture of caffeine and desperation. The room was a cluttered mess of salvaged alien tech and human ingenuity. Holographic displays flickered with data streams as Elena and her team, including the Zarkan defector Zixtal, pored over the latest test results. "It's not working," Elena muttered, frustration evident in her voice. "We're still missing something crucial about their shield technology." Zixtal chittered thoughtfully, its compound eyes reflecting the dim light of the lab. "Perhaps we are approaching this from the wrong angle," it suggested. "The Zarkan shields are not just a barrier, but a complex energy matrix that adapts to incoming threats." Elena's eyes widened as realization dawned. "Of course. We've been trying to overpower the shields when we should be trying to outsmart them." She turned to her team, excitement replacing exhaustion. "What if we could create a frequency that resonates with the shield's energy signature, causing it to destabilize from within?" As Elena and her team threw themselves into this new line of research, similar breakthroughs were occurring across the globe. In the flooded remnants of Tokyo, a group of engineers led by Kenji Tanaka had successfully reverse-engineered a Zarkan energy weapon. The device was bulky and unstable, but it was the first human-made weapon capable of penetrating alien armor reliably. Meanwhile, in the Australian outback, Indigenous trackers working alongside resistance scientists made a startling discovery. The native flora had begun to adapt to the changed environmental conditions caused by the Zarkon attack on the magnetosphere. Some plants were developing properties that could neutralize the toxic atmospheres left in the wake of alien terraforming attempts. These discoveries sparked a renewed sense of hope among the resistance. Humanity was finally beginning to turn the aliens' own advantages against them. In what remained of London, RAF pilot James Hawkins led a daring raid on a Zarkon research facility. Intelligence suggested that the aliens were developing a new weapon capable of manipulating gravity itself. As James's team infiltrated the compound, they encountered unexpectedly light resistance. "Something's not right," James muttered as they approached the central laboratory. "This is too easy." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the facility. The team found themselves surrounded by Zarkon soldiers, their weapons trained on the humans. But before either side could open fire, a blinding light filled the room. When the light faded, James was shocked to see the Zarkon troops lying unconscious on the ground. Standing amidst the fallen aliens was a figure that seemed to shimmer and shift, as if not fully present in this reality. "Do not be alarmed," the figure spoke, its voice resonating in James's mind rather than his ears. "We are the Etheri, and we have come to help." The appearance of the Etheri, a highly advanced race from a distant galaxy, marked a turning point in the war. They explained that they had been observing the conflict from afar, bound by a non-intervention policy. But the Zarkon's attack on Earth's magnetosphere had threatened the delicate balance of the galaxy, forcing the Etheri to act. While the Etheri couldn't directly fight the Zarkon due to ancient treaties, they could provide humanity with knowledge and technology to level the playing field. They shared designs for advanced weaponry and defenses, as well as the secret to efficiently harnessing zero-point energy, a virtually limitless power source. This influx of advanced knowledge catalyzed a technological revolution within the resistance. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team quickly adapted the Etheri designs to work with Earth's available resources. Within weeks, the first human-made energy shields were deployed to protect key resistance strongholds. In New York, Captain Sarah Chen led a strike team equipped with the new Etheri-inspired weapons. They moved through the ruins of Manhattan, engaging Zarkon patrols with unprecedented success. Sarah watched in awe as her team's weapons cut through alien shields like they weren't even there. "Command, this is Chen," she reported, her voice filled with cautious optimism. "The new tech works. I repeat, the new tech works. We're actually pushing them back." Similar reports flooded in from resistance cells around the world. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity was winning battles decisively. The Zarkon, caught off guard by this sudden shift in the balance of power, found themselves on the defensive. Aboard the Zarkon flagship, Fleet Commander Vexcor raged at his subordinates. "How is this possible?" he roared. These primitives were on the brink of defeat. Where did they obtain such technology? His second-in-command, Zira, approached cautiously. "Commander, we've detected energy signatures consistent with Etheri technology. It appears they have broken their neutrality." Vexcor's mandibles clicked in agitation. The Etheri were one of the few races the Zarkon truly feared. If they had decided to aid the humans, the invasion of Earth had suddenly become far more complicated. "Recall our ground forces," Vexcor ordered. "Prepare the fleet for orbital bombardment. If we cannot have this world, then neither shall these humans." As the Zarkon ships began to realign for a devastating attack from orbit, the resistance scrambled to respond. In Washington, D.C., President Amanda Reeves convened an emergency meeting of resistance leaders from around the world. "We've received intelligence that the Zarkon are preparing for a final massive assault," she announced grimly. "They intend to render Earth uninhabitable rather than admit defeat. We need options, people." Dr. Elena Rodriguez's hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. "Madam President, we might have a solution. The Etheri provided us with designs for a planetary shield generator. If we can build and activate it in time, we could protect the entire Earth from orbital bombardment. That's a big if, Doctor, General Stanton interjected. How long would it take to construct? Elena hesitated before responding. With all available resources and personnel, maybe 72 hours. But we'd need to place generator nodes at strategic points around the globe. It would require simultaneous operations on every continent. President Reeves surveyed the faces of her advisors, seeing a mixture of determination and fear. She took a deep breath before speaking. We don't have a choice. This is our only shot at saving what's left of our world. Give the order. All resistance forces are to divert to this operation immediately. As the meeting adjourned, the greatest coordinated effort in human history began to unfold. Resistance cells worldwide mobilized to construct and defend the shield generator nodes. Every available aircraft was pressed into service, ferrying personnel and equipment to the designated sites. In Antarctica, a team led by Dr. Rodriguez herself worked to construct the master control node for the planetary shield. The harsh conditions and constant Zarkan attacks made progress painfully slow, but failure was not an option. As the 72-hour deadline approached, tension mounted across the globe. The Zarkan fleet had moved into position, their weapons primed for a planet-killing assault. On every continent, resistance fighters worked feverishly to bring the shield generators online, even as they fought off waves of desperate alien attacks. In the final hours, it came down to a handful of key battles. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous warriors fought alongside international resistance members to defend the South American node. In the Himalayas, a joint Chinese-Indian force held off a massive Zarkan assault to protect the Asian generator. And in the heart of Africa, a coalition of fighters from dozens of nations made a last stand to ensure their continent's node came online. As the clock ticked down to zero, Dr. Rodriguez stood before the master control panel in Antarctica, her hand hovering over the activation switch. The fate of humanity rested on this moment. With a silent prayer, she threw the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a shimmering energy field began to spread across the sky, growing rapidly until it encapsulated the entire planet. The Zarkan fleet opened fire, their energy weapons impacting the shield in a dazzling display of light and power. But the shield held. Cheers erupted from resistance bases around the world as the realization set in. They had done it. Earth was protected. The Zarkan's ultimate weapon had been rendered useless. This moment marked the true turning point of the war. With their trump card neutralized, the Zarkan found themselves in an untenable position. Humanity, armed with HFY technology and united as never before, was now ready to take the fight to the invaders. As the glow of victory began to fade, the resistance leaders knew that the war was far from over. The Zarkan still had a powerful fleet in orbit and significant forces on the ground. But for the first time since the invasion began, humanity dared to believe that they might not just survive, but win. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and Earth's defenders were ready to fight with renewed vigor and hope. The Zarkan had awakened a sleeping giant, and now they would face the full fury of a united human race, determined to reclaim their home and their future. The counterattack. With the planetary shield in place and HFY technology integrated into their arsenal, humanity was finally ready to launch a full-scale counteroffensive against the Zarkan invaders. The resistance, once scattered and on the defensive, had transformed into a formidable fighting force. In orbit, the Zarkan fleet found itself in an unprecedented situation. Their ships, once invulnerable to Earth's weapons, were now vulnerable to attack. Human spacecraft, retrofitted with HFY-inspired propulsion and weapon systems, began harassing the alien armada. RAF pilot James Hawkins, now commander of Earth's fledgling Space Force, led the first major assault on the Zarkan fleet. His fighter, a hybrid of human and alien technology, streaked through the void, leading a squadron of similarly equipped craft. "Remember your training," James's voice crackled over the comms. "Hit their propulsion systems first, then weapons. Let's show these bastards what happens when they mess with Earth. The space battle that ensued was unlike anything in human history. Energy beams crisscrossed the darkness of space, while human fighters executed maneuvers that would have been impossible with conventional technology. The Zarkan, caught off guard by the humans' newfound capabilities, suffered heavy losses. On the Zarkan flagship, Fleet Commander Vexcor watched in disbelief as his fleet was decimated. "Impossible," he hissed. "These primitives were barely spacefaring months ago." His second-in-command, Zira, approached with grim news. "Commander, we've lost a third of our fleet. The humans are targeting our supply lines. If this continues, we won't be able to maintain our orbital position." Vexcor's compound eyes narrowed. "Then we have no choice. Initiate Protocol Omega. We will make our final stand on the surface." As the Zarkan fleet began a fighting retreat to Earth's surface, the Resistance prepared for the next phase of the counterattack. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had developed a virus that could infect and disrupt Zarkan technology, but it needed to be deployed directly into their main ground bases. In what remained of Beijing, Captain Sarah Chen led a joint U.S.-Chinese strike team on a mission to infiltrate one of the largest Zarkan ground installations. The team moved silently through the ruins of the once great city, their advanced stealth technology rendering them nearly invisible to alien sensors. As they approached the massive alien structure, Sarah held up a hand, signaling the team to halt. "Something's not right," she whispered. "Security's too light. They're expecting us." No sooner had the words left her mouth than the air was filled with the screech of Zarkan alarm systems. Doors in the structure burst open, disgorging waves of alien soldiers. "It's a trap," Sarah yelled. "Fall back to secondary positions." The human forces scattered, taking cover behind rubble and in bombed-out buildings. As the Zarkan advanced, the true nature of the trap became apparent. The aliens had developed a countermeasure to the Etheri-inspired weapons, rendering them less effective. Sarah gritted her teeth as she fired her rifle, watching in dismay as the Zarkan shrugged off hits that should have been lethal. "Command, this is Chen," she yelled into her comm. "The enemy has adapted. Our weapons are only partially effective, requesting immediate extraction." But even as the situation seemed dire, humanity's greatest strength came to the fore: adaptability. A young soldier in Sarah's team, Private Lai Wei, had been tinkering with his weapon during the firefight. "Captain," he called out, "I think I've found a workaround." Lai had managed to modify his rifle on the fly, altering its energy frequency to bypass the Zarkan's new defenses. Sarah quickly relayed the modification instructions to her team and to resistance forces worldwide. Within minutes, the tide of the battle began to turn once more. As the fight raged on in Beijing, similar scenes played out across the globe. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous warriors led by a former Brazilian Special Forces operator used their intimate knowledge of the terrain to ambush Zarkan patrols. In the steppes of Russia, tanks retrofitted with alien technology engaged in massive armored battles against Zarkan war machines. Meanwhile, in orbit, the space battle had reached a crucial juncture. Commander James Hawkins had led his forces in a daring assault on the Zarkan flagship. As his fighter dodged energy beams and debris, James spotted a weakness in the massive ship's defenses. "All units, focus fire on Sector 7G, he ordered. "That's their main power conduit. If we can take it out, we might be able to disable the whole ship." The human fighters concentrated their attack, their weapons punching through the weakened shields. A series of explosions rippled across the Zarkan flagship's hull, and for a moment, everything seemed to hang in the balance. Then, with a final, cataclysmic blast, the alien vessel began to break apart. Cheers erupted over the comms as the humans witnessed the destruction of the Zarkan command ship. Without central leadership, the remaining alien forces in orbit fell into disarray. Back on Earth, the news of the space victory galvanized the resistance. With renewed vigor, they pressed their advantage against the increasingly disorganized Zarkan ground forces. In Antarctica, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team worked feverishly to complete the virus that could disable Zarkan technology. The Zarkan defector, Zixtal, had provided crucial insights that allowed them to target the aliens' quantum communication network. "It's ready," Elena announced, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "But we need to deploy it to every major Zarkan installation simultaneously. Otherwise, they'll adapt and render it useless." President Amanda Reeves, coordinating the global counteroffensive from a mobile command center, made the call. "All resistance cells, initiate Operation Blackout." I repeat, initiate Operation Blackout. Around the world, specially trained teams began their assault on key Zarkan facilities. Their objective: to upload the virus directly into the aliens' central computers. The operations were high risk, with many teams suffering heavy casualties. But one by one, the uploads were confirmed. In New Delhi, a team led by Indian tech specialists managed to infiltrate a Zarkan communication hub. In Cairo, Egyptian archaeologists turned resistance fighters used ancient tunnel systems to access a subterranean alien base. And in the heart of London, a group of hackers and SAS operatives fought their way into a heavily fortified Zarkan stronghold. As the virus took hold, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Zarkan weapons ceased to function, their communications went dark, and their advanced war machines ground to a halt. The aliens, so reliant on their superior technology, suddenly found themselves vulnerable and isolated. Fleet Commander Vexicor, who had relocated to a ground base after the destruction of his flagship, watched in horror as his forces crumbled around him. "This cannot be happening," he raged. "We are the Zarkan. We have conquered 1,000 worlds." But the reality of defeat was undeniable. With their technology neutralized and their forces in disarray, the once mighty Zarkan invasion force was reduced to pockets of resistance. As news of victories poured in from around the globe, humanity dared to believe that the impossible had happened. They had won. The alien invaders, with all their advanced technology and military might, had been defeated by the tenacity, creativity, and indomitable spirit of the human race. In the smoldering ruins of Beijing, Captain Sarah Chen stood atop a defeated Zarkan war machine, surveying the battered but unbroken city. A sense of awe washed over her as she realized the magnitude of what humanity had accomplished. "We did it," she whispered, tears mixing with the grime on her face. "We actually did it." But even as the first celebrations began to break out around the world, the leaders of the resistance knew that the war was not yet over. Pockets of Zarkan forces remained, and the devastation wrought by the invasion would take years, if not decades, to heal. Moreover, humanity now possessed technology and knowledge far beyond their previous capabilities. The choices they made in the aftermath of the war would shape the future of their species and their planet. As the dust settled on the greatest conflict in human history, Earth's defenders prepared for one final push: to eliminate the last of the Zarkan threat and begin the long process of rebuilding their world. The war had changed humanity forever, uniting them as never before and propelling them into a new era of technological advancement and interstellar awareness. The Zarkan had come expecting to find an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant and filled it with a terrible resolve. Humanity had proven that they were not just survivors, but warriors, innovators, and the rightful defenders of their home. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Reckoning. In the aftermath of humanity's stunning counteroffensive, the once mighty Zarkan invasion force found itself scattered and on the run. But like a cornered animal, the remaining aliens fought with desperate ferocity, knowing they had nothing left to lose. The final phase of the war would require a coordinated global effort to root out the last Zarkan strongholds and secure a lasting peace for Earth. It would also force humanity to grapple with difficult questions about their place in the galaxy and the responsible use of their newfound power. President Amanda Reeves addressed the United Nations, reformed in the crucible of war, outlining the challenges ahead. "We stand at a crossroads," she declared. "We have won our freedom, but at a terrible cost. Now we must decide what kind of future we want to build from the ashes of the old world. The speech was broadcast worldwide, reaching even the most remote resistance cells. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal trackers who had become expert Zarkan hunters listened intently. In the mountains of Afghanistan, former enemies who had united against the alien threat nodded in agreement. The war had changed everything, erasing old boundaries and forging new alliances. As the final operations against the Zarkan were planned, Dr. Elena Rodriguez made a startling discovery. The virus they had used to disable alien technology had an unexpected side effect. It had created a neural link between the Zarkan hive mind and human brainwaves. "We can communicate with them directly," Elena explained to a stunned War Council. "More than that, we can feel what they feel. They're terrified." This revelation sparked intense debate among Earth's leaders. Some argued for using this link to force an unconditional surrender, while others saw it as an opportunity for a more peaceful resolution. In orbit, Commander James Hawkins led a fleet of Earth's new hybrid ships in a blockade of the planet, preventing any Zarkan from escaping. As he patrolled the silent void of space, James reflected on how far humanity had come in such a short time. To think, he mused to his co-pilot, "A year ago, we could barely reach our own moon. Now we're defending Earth from alien invaders." On the ground, the final battles against the Zarkan rage. In the Siberian tundra, Russian and Chinese forces cornered a large alien contingent. In the Andes Mountains, a joint South American task force laid siege to a fortified Zarkan base built into an ancient Incan site. Captain Sarah Chen found herself leading an assault on the last major Zarkan stronghold, located in the heart of the African Congo. As her international team of elite soldiers fought their way through the alien defenses, Sarah couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. "These aren't the same aliens we fought before," she reported back to command. "They're desperate, reckless. It's like they don't care if they live or die anymore." As they breached the central chamber of the stronghold, Sarah and her team came face to face with Fleet Commander Vexcor himself. The once proud Zarkan leader was a shadow of his former self, his exoskeleton cracked and his movements erratic. "So, this is how it ends," Vexcor chittered, his translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in his alien voice. "Our mighty empire, brought low by a species we considered barely sentient." Sarah raised her weapon, but something held her back. Through the neural link, she could sense the alien's despair, his fear, and underneath it all, a grudging respect for humanity's tenacity. "It doesn't have to end this way," Sarah found herself saying. "Surrender, and we can find a way forward, a way to coexist." For a long moment, Vexcor was silent. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapons. "Perhaps," he said softly, "we have something to learn from you humans after all." The surrender of Vexcor marked the effective end of the war. Across the globe, the remaining Zarkan forces laid down their arms, realizing that their cause was lost. But the cessation of hostilities brought new challenges. What to do with the surrendered Zarkan became a topic of fierce debate. Some called for their execution or imprisonment, while others argued for a more compassionate approach. The neural link had revealed the complexity of Zarkan society and the fact that many of the alien soldiers were as much victims of their empire's aggression as the humans had been. In a bold and controversial move, President Reeves proposed a plan for integration. The Zarkan who chose to remain on Earth would be allowed to do so, living in designated areas and contributing their knowledge to help rebuild the planet they had nearly destroyed. "We have an opportunity here," Reeves argued, "to show that humanity's strength lies not just in our ability to fight, but in our capacity for forgiveness and growth." The proposal met with resistance from many quarters, but as the reality of post-war reconstruction set in, pragmatism won out. The Zarkan's advanced knowledge would be invaluable in healing Earth's wounded ecosystems and rebuilding shattered infrastructure. In the months that followed, an uneasy peace settled over the planet. Former battlefields became sites of joint human-Zarkan restoration projects. The alien technology, combined with human ingenuity, accelerated the planet's recovery at an astonishing rate. Dr. Elena Rodriguez found herself working alongside Zixtal and other Zarkan scientists, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Together, they developed new technologies that promised to solve many of Earth's long-standing problems, from clean energy to food production. As Earth recovered, humanity began to look to the stars with new eyes. The Aetheri, true to their non-interventionist policies, had withdrawn after the war's end. But they left behind an invitation for Earth to join a galactic community of peaceful species once they were ready. Commander James Hawkins, now the head of Earth's new space exploration initiative, stood before a crowd of eager recruits. "We've proven that we can defend our home," he said. "Now it's time to explore our neighborhood. The galaxy awaits, and this time, we're going out there on our own terms." Captain Sarah Chen, promoted to general, took charge of Earth's new planetary defense force. Her experiences in the war had taught her the importance of being prepared, but also the value of diplomacy and understanding. "We train not just to fight," she told her troops, "but to protect, to understand, and when necessary, to extend a hand in peace." As Earth marked the first anniversary of the war's end, President Reeves stood at a podium before a rebuilt United Nations headquarters. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat alongside a small contingent of Zarkan, a sight that would have been unthinkable just a year before. "We gather here today not just as survivors, but as architects of a new future," Reeves began. "The war forced us to confront the worst in ourselves, but it also revealed the best. We discovered a strength we never knew we had, a capacity for unity that transcended all boundaries." She paused, looking out over the assembled delegates. "The road ahead will not be easy. We have much to rebuild, much to heal. But we do so not just as individual nations, but as a united planet. We have seen the face of the cosmos, and we know now that we are not alone. But we also know that there is something unique about the human spirit. Our resilience, our adaptability, our capacity for both war and peace. The Zarkan came to conquer us, believing us to be primitive and weak. They could not have been more wrong. We showed them, and ourselves, that humanity's greatest strength lies in our diversity, our creativity, and our indomitable will to survive and thrive. As we look to the future, let us carry forward the lessons of this war. Let us remember that we are stronger together than we ever were apart. And let us show the galaxy that humanity is ready not just to take its place among the stars, but to lead the way toward a brighter future for all species." As applause filled the chamber, the sun broke through the clouds outside, casting a warm glow over the recovering Earth. The war had ended, but humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united. Whatever challenges the galaxy might hold, Earth and its people were ready to face them, together. The Zarkan had come expecting the humans to run. They couldn't have been more wrong. In standing their ground, in fighting back against impossible odds, humanity had not just saved their planet. They had changed the course of galactic history. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the universe would never be the same again.